What's going on, everybody? My name is Johnny Bannon, and today we're doing another episode of the Successful Veterans Show. And I have a very special guest, somebody I'm kind of close with, my older sister, Tara Bandon Lindauer. She's also an Army vet. She did about 4 to 5 years in the Army and then got out and now is working as a SDE2, I believe, at AWS in the cleared space. So this is a fantastic guest to have on the show because she's been through it and done it all as a transitioning veteran. So she's going to talk about her transition out of the military, how she landed her role at AWS, and the trials and tribulations she faced coming from a non-technical background into a strong technical role at one of these large companies, a FANG company, no less. So Tara, welcome. How's it going today?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I know we're brother and sister, so it's okay if it gets a little unprofessional. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah.
This isn't Hassan's show, so we're not going to talk any politics, but we're
Oh,
just going
dang,
to
darn.
stick, we're just going to stick to the technical stuff. So,
Okay.
first thing I want to talk about is obviously your time in the military. What was your
Right.
MOS? What did you do? And then we can
Mhm.
get into transition, okay?
Okay. Sounds great. Okay. To start off, I was an intelligence analyst in the military. That was my MOS. It's a 35 Fox, and I had it pretty good. I got to brief the four-star general for about 2 years of the last 2 years of my military experience, actually. I got to create the CG's read book and brief. The first brief ever was an Admiral Harris, actually, and I was the lead. I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I was the lead Chinese analyst over at Usterpack.
Hey, that's fine. This is a veteran show, right? It's the anime.
That's true. Okay, okay.
So that was Paycom, right? That Paycom
So,
Admiral or no?
there was part of that was Paycom's Admiral, correct? And I was over at Usterpack. So, yeah,
Okay, awesome. So
yeah,
you were an Intel analyst, and then as you started
correct.
transitioning out, did you have any like viable reason to go into tech? Was there a reason you wanted to get into tech, or did it kind of just happen for you?
Yeah, so actually, as a kid for me, I know I'm older than you, so we have like a 7 year gap, right?
Yep.
For me, I played my first computer game when I was 2 years old with our grandpa, and yes, it was a Sesame Street game, but I basically that started it where I was super into computers, and I actually like mom and dad had to rip me away from the computers, and they made sure that I was in, sports and was doing something active. I hated that, and I just wanted to work on computers all the time. So that's basically what sparked my whole wanting to be in the tech field is how can I be on a computer all day long is what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. So I had always thought about it, and basically uh, that was just a dream of mine was to always be a woman engineer.
Awesome.
So
So dope. So
yeah,
as transitioning
yeah,
out of the military,
yeah,
I'm sure, we all have those feelings of worry, right? We're something in the military,
totally.
and then as we get out, it's like, what are we going to do?
Right.
And even you got
Right.
out, I think in your mid 20s, I think the
Yeah.
feelings for you getting out as a 4 year sergeant, as the same feeling someone
Yeah.
that retires as a 20 years feels is what's next? What am I going to
Right.
do now? So as you went
Right.
through that process, was there anything you did to kind of set yourself up to go get that AWS apprenticeship?
Yeah, so for me, my last year in the military, I actually went back to Arizona State, which is where I had already received my bachelor's degree from. I just enrolled in some more software engineering courses. I had actually originally I was in I was in college for about 7 years, and I had changed my major about six times. And I actually did study software engineering for about I would say 2 years, and then I actually ended up not graduating with that because I wanted to graduate so quickly. Like I was
Mm,
done with college after being in there for
of
seven
course,
years
yeah.
that yeah. So I did not actually major in that. So I just went back and did some more courses to refresh myself because I knew that I wanted to get into the tech field. So I was like, hey, you know what? I have not touched this in years. Let me go back and take some college courses that are just even if they're just redoing the intro courses to any languages type of
Mhm.
thing. So that's what I prepped myself with.
Okay, so you prepped yourself by going back to college, kind of getting back to that
Right.
space, because obviously Intel
Totally.
analysts, there's probably,
Has,
it's
yeah,
totally not tech at all, right? I mean, you're on
totally
the
not.
computer,
Yeah.
but it's not tech.
Totally. Right. And and my degrees, I mean, well, I got psychology later on too, but I was pre-med and it's like I had nothing to do. I went from wanting to be a veterinarian too, and then going into the intel world, nothing to do with tech, right?
Hmm.
And then I was like, okay, you know what? This is something I always wanted to do. I want to get back at this. So, went back into college and started learning up and brushing up on the languages. And then also, um, I would say that I definitely kept watching a lot of YouTube videos and trying to get myself more knowledgeable in
Hmm.
what's going on in the tech field.
Of course. So, and I know your story obviously because I'm your brother. But after
Right.
you exited the military,
Right.
how did you find that AWS apprenticeship? And just for the people watching, so, and I'll let her tell it as well. She got her role at AWS by going, I'm assuming, and I'll let you tell it, going on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
searching, and going those extra steps to find the opportunity out there. And utilizing the
Right.
clearance you had obtained in the military, you got an AWS apprenticeship. And then it pretty much was gangbusters from there, right?
Well, pretty much, I would say. So basically, actually, it was like networking, right? So knowing people in the military. It was actually somebody I'd met at basic training years prior, and her and I went our separate ways. She was still in the intel field, but we had different MOSs, right? But
Hmm.
she actually went to the same unit that my husband was at over at JBLM, and he had like told me, hey, I saw that so and so actually got a job at Amazon. I wonder what they're doing since they're in the intel field, right? And
Hmm.
what could they possibly be doing that's related, you
Yeah,
know?
at Amazon.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, exactly. So, yes, I did reach out to her on LinkedIn, and that's how I kind of sparked the conversation and let her know, hey, I heard that you work at Amazon and I'm trying to get into the tech field. Can you tell me more about what it is that you do and how you got this opportunity? And so she actually gave me information about military apprenticeships at Amazon, and she gave me her recruiter's name, and she put in a good word for me. And next thing you know, her recruiter was reaching out to me, and that's kind of what sparked the whole getting into the Amazon military, the
Mm.
military apprenticeship over at Amazon. And I was going to say too, yes, you talked about my clearance. That played a huge role because being in the intel field, I had a clearance, right? And the military apprenticeship is for in the cleared space
Yeah.
over at
So
Amazon,
TS,
right? So that
SCI.
was something that's, yeah,
Mm.
right. So that's required as a part of the Amazon
Hmm.
military apprenticeship program for
Yeah,
the role that I was looking for.
and on this show, that's the reason I bring
Mhm.
that up, and is because
Mhm.
a lot of times my students and the people that follow me, follow our company, they're always
Mhm.
thinking that it's some certification or it's something special that
Right,
they got to do, which everyone is
right,
special and unique. But really, coming
right.
out of the military, the best way to set yourself up sometimes is your clearance and your network.
Hmm.
And that's
Totally.
something even the last guest we had on was saying too. Is like, I've been a Green Beret for 14 years. I have all this experience in certs, but what gets
Hmm.
me in the door at Cisco was having buddies that worked at Cisco and kind of putting you
Totally.
on, so to speak, onto that
Totally.
path, right? So it's
Hmm.
interesting that your friend was a military intelligence, nothing to do with
Hmm.
tech on Amazon, and now she puts you
Right,
on. So
right.
kind of the whole point of this show, right, is understanding that to be successful in tech or to be just successful in general, it always comes
Hmm.
down to those soft skills. It's coming down to
Exactly.
knowing your network. So
Right.
once you joined the AWS apprenticeship, what was the
Hmm.
path? Was it six
Right.
months, 9 months? What did you have to learn? What certs did you need? And what actual
Hmm.
technical stuff did you have to learn?
Right. So starting off, I just wanted to preface that this military apprenticeship, uh, it required no prior technical experience at all, which basically is what I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
any, right? Just a few college courses that doesn't really mean anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it required having the top secret clearance and basically just it's open to all prior military personnel and military spouses, I wanted to say as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a thing as well. But during the apprenticeship, I took some paid training courses that were also college courses. They were just these 2 week, really fast paced courses where they were teaching us stuff like intro to Python, Ruby, Linux,
Mm-hmm.
and Java networking, kind of just everything that you'd be using when you get into the role, right? So that lasted for 6 months. And then after those 6 months, they did want you to obtain a cert in CompTIA's Linux Plus course.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's very important too. I wanted to add is that a lot of people that were already in the military apprenticeship in our cohort, they already had that Linux Plus course
They
cert.
had
So they didn't have
certifications.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, they already
Mm-hmm.
had the cert. So they didn't have to do any of the testing out that I had to do, right? And a lot of other people did have other certs like Sec Plus, and I think it was like I'm not too familiar with all these courses. I know you are, but
Yeah.
there's like I think there was like an A plus or something like
Yeah,
that. But
probably
all
like
these
intro to
people had
computers.
yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But all these people did have a leg up and they had a lot of other stuff. So I would say that was really awesome for them to have prior knowledge too going into this. So certs are really important, as well.
Yeah.
But after you had to get that to move on to the next part of the apprenticeship. And the next part of the apprenticeship is on the job training, and that lasts for a year. And then anytime within that year, the team that they put you onto, because they just put you on a team that's looking for apprentices, right? That team needs to like see that you're up to the task, and then they will offer a full-time position to you.
Okay.
And then, but it's within that 1 year time frame, and you can do it early. Me and the guy who was also with me, he was part of my apprenticeship, right? We were put on the same team, and we were the first two apprentices that got signed on early after only 6 months of on-the-job training. So that was really awesome to be the first ones, right?
Yeah.
But so it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
those apprenticeships, I don't know if AWS does them currently, but they'll come back.
Right.
Cisco does
Right.
it. Microsoft does
Exactly.
it. So I always
Right.
tell my students and people listening, like, look,
Right.
there's these programs out there that can pretty much give you that path to success.
Totally.
And after you
Totally.
got hired on, you were an SDE 1, correct? That's what they call it?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Correct.
And that
right.
TC total comp is like what? Like 160, 170?
Yeah, total comp, I would say that's exactly probably what it was.
And of course, we're going to talk about that because Successful Veteran Show, right? A lot of people transitioning. I think besides the personal things like not having the camaraderie, not having people to text right away, like a family or a group of people, so to speak, that's the biggest fear is how I support myself, right? And to going from E5 to software engineer level 1 at Amazon is quite the jump, right?
Oh yeah, total. And I know it's something I tell a lot of the guys that I still know who are in the military. I always try to tell them like, hey, like, listen, this is a huge opportunity for you guys. I know you guys have no prior experience, but look, I did this, and you could be making X amount of money, right? Like huge jump. And something to add to the whole apprenticeship experience is that during that whole time, my total comp was I would say it was about 96K, so during that time it was 96K during all the training too, which is pretty good for somebody who's getting trained,
and you get the certs, you still have your clearance. So even if something happens at Amazon
and they pay,
where you can't work at one of their cleared spaces, I mean, you still have that experience.
Well, and actually sometimes too, if let's say their clearances didn't transition over to the sponsor type of thing, Amazon would still put them on a team that was not a cleared team. So they didn't just, get rid of them type of thing. They still were valuable. Yeah, exactly. They were more in the commercial retail space. So, but they were still put on a team, and it's still a really good total comp type of thing.
So just because this kind of jumps me into our next topic, right? We kind of went through your transition story. Now you're an SD level 2, which I'm sure that TC is a lot higher. So hey, shout out Jeff Bezos, right? Picking it up. But a lot of times my students, even though they're in a Commo MOS or Signal MOS, whatever you want to call it, tech, it's the Army, right? So they go to these units and they don't get a lot of tech experience. The most they sometimes get is coming to my class and then maybe a few things here or there. And then after those 4 years, they have imposter syndrome where they say, okay, I'm supposed to have this experience. I'm supposed to know, but I don't feel like I do know. Now, I know me and you have talked about this because it happens to everyone. It even happens to your husband, our co-founder, who's been doing tech, I think, since he was out the womb.
Pretty much,
everyone feels imposter syndrome. So coming from a non-technical background, what steps did you do to kind of overcome that? Or did you even feel it at all?
Oh, I mean, of course. I think, like you said, everybody feels it. Yeah. And the thing that actually really helped me was that right away, my mentors, like once I was put on the team that I was on at Amazon, my mentors told me right away, hey, listen, they wake up every day and they have imposter syndrome. And to me, these are people who are like, they're the experts. They are so brilliant. I can't wait to be at their position type of thing, And if they're telling me this and they're experiencing this, then okay, this is just a thing that you go through in the tech field is what they said, right? It just was what it is. And that's okay. Like there's every single day at Amazon, I swear I learned something new, but it's like, if you're learning, right? And you're just continuing to grow upon your knowledge. And that's really all it can be, is like, nobody's going to be these experts. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, if you didn't have imposter syndrome, there may be something
You
that's
might
weird.
actually not be that good of an engineer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say that. But something that I did do too, because I was such a novice, right, coming into this and not having a tech field background type of thing was like I wanted to better myself and make sure that I was performing at a higher level. So for me, it was really about taking on new projects at work and just making sure that my manager and I would talk and he would make sure that I was taking on things that like I have no idea how to do DNS. So he
Hmm.
would give me a project and we'd talk about it. Hey, I don't know X, Y, and Z language. Let's do something in that language. And just trying to be putting myself in a position where I was uncomfortable,
Hmm.
and then learning so much. And now I can say, like, oh, I know how to do DNS,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So that was a really good experience. And
So for
it does help to have a good
beginners
manager.
in the tech
Yeah.
field, don't be afraid,
Yeah.
right? Essentially,
Don't
don't
be
be afraid
afraid.
to
No,
learn new things and try new
right.
things.
Totally. And it is overwhelming. It's going to be overwhelming no matter what, but you will get through to the other side,
Yeah.
and you'll come out better. You'll be a better engineer because of it. And other things too, I was thinking of is that I watched a ton of YouTube videos on coding languages all the time to really instill those basics and concepts. Because once you have those, learning a new language, you could just build upon that prior knowledge,
Hmm.
right? And something that some advice I think I would give to help out yourself too is really just I wish that I had worked on a Raspberry Pi and setting it up. I think that would have really helped me being better at Linux because I think that was the thing that I struggled with the most. And seeing people log dive and stuff, I was always like, oh my God, how are they doing this? How do they know how to grep
Yeah.
and do blah, 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 with all these different flags and stuff? That was really scary. So I had always heard of people doing that. I wish I had just pushed myself to do that.
Yeah. So like self
So,
projects, right? And I know your
yeah,
husband, me,
yeah,
we
yeah,
preach that all the time. I'm sure you're tired of
totally,
hearing it.
totally.
But
Yeah,
yeah, doing something like
yeah,
that, building a Raspberry
yeah,
Pi, it teaches you
right.
the compute, the storage,
Totally.
the
Totally.
networking, and then also the DevOps, right? The development part of
Hmm.
it, and the
Right. Yeah.
OS. And I agree with you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So I think that's something, and I would also say like before I did have this job and when I was still doing like some college courses, I would talking about projects, I tried to build my own apps.
mhm,
I tried to build an app about skincare, like my skincare routine, because sometimes I'd forget what products did I use or
mhm,
things like that. And I try to do stuff like that. Or I always wanted to build computer games, right? So I worked on Unity and dabbled in that too. So
mhm.
yeah, definitely working on side projects is a huge thing.
Yeah, and learning that development process, right?
Yeah,
Because a lot of
totally.
times
Yeah.
I'm from an IT background, and when you jumped into
Hmm.
AWS, that was
Hmm.
more of a development, platform
Right.
engineering, right, role.
Right.
So a lot of the guys that come from IT, when they want to go into
Hmm.
DevOps, SRE, site reliability engineers, that's something that they
Hmm.
have to learn is that development process. It's a lot different
Totally.
than configuring
Right.
firewalls and adding entries, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So your current role now, I know you said
Yeah.
it's changed. You were at first in
Mhm.
development, and now you're doing, I think, I'll have you explain. Pretty much platform
So
engineering, right?
right, right. So when I started off, it was more op heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just because based off of the projects that they had at the time. Then it switched more into the software engineering part and the coding part because we were working on more region build automation and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So then it became kind of just transitioned to that. But now I'm going more into the ops side, and I'm working on a doc role change basically,
Mm-hmm.
where I will be an ADC engineer, which is basically it's just a cleared space engineer that's dedicated to those government regions, right?
Okay,
But
yeah.
that's going to be very, very ops
Mm-hmm.
heavy
And it's
and moving
all
away from DevOps, really.
AWS technologies, right? When you work at
Yeah,
AWS, you
right,
just focus on the AWS apps and services that would
right,
be on like a
exactly. All
regular
those
AWS
tooling.
management console, correct? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Because I got to tell my audience what you actually do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
True.
So now being a woman in the STEM space, now I know
Mhm.
everyone's experience is going to differ. I know you
Yeah.
worked at AWS and these FANG companies, they're corporate. They're
Yeah.
probably inclusive. They make everyone feel just as important and equal. But do you ever feel intimidated as a woman getting into STEM? And how can you tell my audience how you shouldn't be, right? How you should take that
Yeah.
dive?
Right. Kind of the whole topic of women in STEM for me is like, I wish that that had been more around when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
like starting off, it's one of those things that like, uh, I didn't know how to get into the tech field when I was younger and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, or that just it didn't seem like it existed. I had no idea what those roles were even called at the time.
Hmm.
And so I think it's great opportunities for women these days, is that STEM is super heavy. But I think, for me, I think some things to think about that when you're in this corporate field, right? Uh, there's some positive aspects of having women in STEM. It creates a diverse, oh my gosh, diverse workforce,
Hmm.
including women. It brings different perspectives and ideas to the tables. This diversity of thought can lead to increased innovation and problem solving in STEM fields.
Hmm.
And I think that the presence of successful women in STEM serves as an inspiration and provides role models for young women and women interested in pursuing those career fields, right?
Yeah,
Having visible role models helps break down stereotypes and encourages more women to enter STEM. Because honestly, for me, actually, it's not very women heavy.
yeah,
It's actually because
never is.
we're,
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I'm the only woman on my team.
yeah.
I'm the only one. There it's kind of interesting because we do have a basically like a sister team over in Virginia.
Hmm.
There's a few more women over there, but it's like I'm the only one on
Yeah,
the team
it probably can be
So it is
intimidating, right?
it's extremely intimidating.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And that's where you're talking about imposter syndrome. I feel it every day as
Yeah.
the only woman that's there,
Yep.
So I feel it so much. And I'm constantly like kind of asking my manager, like, well, I know for Amazon right now, we're in a hiring freeze, but I'm kind of like, hey, like,
Yeah.
can we maybe think about, hiring some women? It's looking a little,
Yeah, I agree with you. But do you think part of
yeah.
that reason is
Hmm.
women sometimes do feel intimidated to get into it? Because I know
Yes.
for my
Yeah.
students, every time
Yeah.
I have girls or women in my classes, some of them are
Hmm.
they're very smart, just like people, regular human
Yeah.
people, and
Right.
I
More
I
than
can feel it.
capable.
They feel
Yeah,
intimidated because of the men
totally.
in the classroom, and I breaking down those
Absolutely.
stereotypes and having those positive like women role models in STEM is very important because
Yeah.
to be honest, like I'm sure you do things better than some of your coworkers. You know?
Right. Totally. And there's always going to be that, right, in any scenario. But yes, no, definitely. I am afraid to sometimes bring up my ideas in front of my male cohorts. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because I don't know. And sometimes if I like, don't know exactly like, how did he do that? But I'm like,
Yeah.
don't want to come across as the dumb woman. And it's really, actually, it's very intimidating. And I always am just like, you know what? No, like I am the woman here and I'm going to,
Yeah.
like I need to be that person and just, so. Yeah, no, I think encouraging women to pursue STEM careers helps to expand the talent pool in these fields, and I think that's
I agree.
crucial as the demand for STEM professionals continues to grow, and then you have a diverse workforce ensures a broader range of skills and experiences.
Hmm.
So, the presence of women in STEM challenges stereotypes and biases associated with gender roles. Because, for example, when I was growing up, it was actually like I didn't want to tell my friends that were girls that I played computer games. That's all I really did, right?
Yeah. I
And then
forgot
like as I got older,
you came up with video games your age. So
yes,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
right. And for me, like I was over there, like playing The Sims and modding my skins and furniture, right? And that's what I did in grade school. It's
Yeah.
like the
Roller
first
Coaster
games
Tycoon.
Sim,
Yeah.
right? It's like the first Sims game came out in 2000. I was already 10 years old,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
like to me that was awesome, and I thought it was so cool. But none of my girlfriends were doing that, and if I ever brought it up, they were kind of like, "Oh, that's
Like what?
nerdy,"
Like what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of were like, "Oh, that's the girl who plays computers." Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it kind of discouraged me as I got older too, because it wasn't cool. It wasn't the thing that people did.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah,
I think
I think that,
now,
yeah,
current generation, that may be a little different. Obviously,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, no, it's
with Twitch
awesome.
and everything.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
kind of
Women are in
circling
video
back,
gaming. Yeah.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
circling back to transition. So as you
Hmm.
were leaving the military, what kind of fears did you have exiting, and how did you
Hmm.
overcome them?
Yeah. So I basically, it was like, I saw my husband. He was a senior, Facebook
He's at L4,
software engineer.
L5, right? I think.
I think it was for him, I think it was E5, which
Oh,
is kind of,
right, right.
yeah. So his are different, but it's like for now that I'm at Amazon, I'm an L5, but he would be equivalent to an L6, which is a senior
Hmm.
software dev type of thing. So it's like the senior engineer, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
And don't
seeing,
worry, we're gonna bring up the TCs before we get out of here. I'm gonna share
oh,
the screen,
okay,
so
okay,
no worries.
okay. Yeah. No, it was definitely intimidating to see like, dang, like he's got it going together. He's got it figured out. He's so successful in my mind. I want to be like that, or
Yeah.
I will say I joined the military later in my mid 20s, right? So I wasn't as afraid as I think some people are who joined right out of
You
high
lived
school,
life
you know.
prior.
I lived life and I totally was like, life's gonna be great. Like this will be fine, you know. So I was not scared of that at all, you know. And I will say though, I already had a college degree. Do you know what I mean? It was
Hmm.
like I already had some things that made me feel secure, you know.
Yeah.
So there is that aspect. I was not afraid of that. Uh, so, but there was the fear of, hey, I wanna get into this tech world, you know,
Hmm.
and how do I go into doing that? And I, at least I will say I had my husband who is somebody who's already in the field. He's already able to give me some great advice, right?
Hmm.
So that was really, really helpful. So that's why, yes, he's my husband, but also just networking in general
Yeah.
is super important,
And
right?
I
Like we talked
know
about.
even on a personal level, I mean, you have
Mhm.
talked that in the
Mhm.
military you felt important, especially this is
Yeah,
not this is a unique experience. Sometimes I know some of
right.
you guys maybe in the mud as an infantryman, maybe you don't feel as
Right.
important, but you are. Um,
Yeah,
how did you battle those demons? Because I know even for me, I just
totally.
got out. There is a sense of purpose lost, and I think
Right.
sometimes even if we throw ourselves into a career or a family or the things we dreamed about while we were in, throwing ourselves
Mhm.
into, there is still
Yeah.
that feeling. Is it
Yeah.
like Stockholm syndrome, or is it something that you think is like legitimate?
I
It's
I
something
think
you had
it's
to
having a
battle with.
purpose and
Yeah.
feeling like you had something fulfilled, right? For me, it was that honestly, like this is how I explain it. It's like I was Sergeant Bandon. I was
Mm-hmm.
somebody who was filling in a role of an officer at the time because they didn't have an officer to fill in that role of creating that CG and all the generals read books every day for two
Mm-hmm.
years, basically. I filled that role of I was in charge of this team who did that, right? And I was looked at like my analyst comments were everything. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was one of those things where the CG and like his deputy like guy, I don't remember the title of him anymore, but like they would just be like, okay, well, we're Sergeant Bandon's analyst comment. We want to see hers. Do you know what I mean? It was very like they were always hyping me up,
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like, and when I let, and everybody was just like, you can't leave, you can't leave. What are we going to do without you type of thing? And it was just like, I was somebody,
Yeah.
and coming from that to just, okay, well,
Yeah.
what do I do now? It
Yeah.
was definitely hard for a while. I definitely kind of hit a little bit of a dark place for myself,
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
COVID happened, I believe, right away too, right?
well, actually, I got super like lucky in a way because I got the job a little bit after COVID. Like I
Oh,
got the
okay.
job at Amazon a little bit
Mm-hmm.
after. So that really helped me and it made me feel like I was somebody again. Like I hit a life goal of wanting to be a woman engineer. Do you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in that, we talk about total compensation with the TC. I hit a goal of making, over six figures.
Yeah.
That was something that I always wanted to do. So there's just these things that like I did, and it was like those milestones though, right? Of joining the military, getting the clearance and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to get to where I was fairly quickly. I got the job a year after being out of the military.
Yeah.
So
Well,
pretty.
do you notice? I've noticed this with my friends. The people that
Mm-hmm.
who create the world who are successful are just the ones who ask. If you bring it full
Mm-hmm.
circle, you always knew you wanted to be an engineer. You saw a
Yeah.
friend that you networked with, and you just
Yeah.
asked. Imagine your
Yeah.
life how it would be different if you didn't just
Oh,
take that
totally.
step to ask. Which seems like a no
Absolutely.
big deal, but I'm sure when
Yeah.
you're don't have a job, you're a veteran, you're like, what am I doing in my life?
Mm-hmm.
That message on LinkedIn or that text message feels
Mm-hmm.
like the world,
It does.
and it's
I
something we should
honestly,
express.
right. And I'm a very high anxiety type person. Like
Hmm.
I get extremely nervous over little things. And it was just a little thing, right? To just send that message. What's it going to hurt? Like in my mind, I'm like, God, she could ignore me and be like, what? Like,
Yeah, and
what do
she
you
could
want?
have. Yeah.
She could have, right? But it's taking that step and just overcoming it, and just doing it,
Hmm.
right? And that's how you do things in life is just, I mean, just like the military. It's like joining the military, it's scary. Like it's very scary to me, at least it
Yeah.
was. And, it's just taking those steps and just doing it and
Just
putting
taking the
yourself
just
out there,
asking,
taking the
it's
risk.
just
Yeah,
asking.
totally. Yeah,
I
totally.
It's funny because in my classes I always talk about you and Steven, your husband, our
Mhm.
co-founder, about how like you guys' success after the military and how
Yeah,
it really was just attributed to the little act of trying, right? The little
yeah.
act
Oh,
of
yeah.
research, the little act of networking.
Yes.
Obviously, your
Yes.
husband, he's been coding for like 10 years when we do our podcast together. It's
Yeah.
going to be a little bit more technical just because,
Mhm.
is it? But,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that's really all it took. And now
Mhm.
I'm bringing up my screen, the TC. You can't see it, but it says on
Yeah.
here 264,000 with stock being
Mm-hmm.
88 grand of it. So
Mm-hmm.
you started you got on a team probably year 2020, right? After the
2020.
apprenticeship.
Yeah. Right.
Okay,
Correct.
so it took you about 3 years to get to this SDE 2, or it would be a level 5.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
At my 3 year.
so
Because it was 6 months, right, of the apprenticeship, and then another 6 months of the on the job training. So that's a full year, right?
mhm,
And then basically the next 2 years was getting that promo, you know.
yeah. So for
Mhm.
anyone watching out here, and I always tell my students, hey, you could be going from E5 to making a lot of money.
True. It, it's real nice.
Yeah. Well, sweet,
Totally.
Tara. I think that pretty much covers all the topics we wanted to hit. Is there anything else
Okay.
you want to talk about before we go? Any words of wisdom for any veterans transitioning that want to get into tech?
Yeah, I think the biggest things I did want to touch on was that if you're still in the military, I advise you to use your TA while you're still in, take some college courses and your GI Bill following your departure from the military. Use those resources that are given to you that you've earned.
Hmm.
Don't let them go to waste. And you can look in programs focused in software engineering, computer science, or information technology. And like we talked about earlier, take a look at certs.
Hmm.
They are really of value. So that will really expand your knowledge base, and that's
Hmm.
super great. We already talked about starting your own projects, but really starting your own projects and, hitting roadblocks on your own and really
Hmm.
troubleshooting on your own are huge things. Those are the biggest things I think that I did that really helped me get to where I'm at
Hmm.
today.
Especially for someone with
And
no experience, right? Because on your
exactly, yeah,
resume, what's it
yeah,
gonna say
yeah.
unless you've done those projects yourself?
Right, right, totally. And you really want to identify your interests, and that's something that I think I've noticed over my time over at Amazon too, where I kind of touched on how I am a sys dev right now, but I'm going to be transitioning into a different role, right?
Hmm.
I think you need to assess your skills, your interests, and your passions within the tech field and determine whether you are more inclined towards programming, networking, cybersecurity, data analysis, or other areas. And this will help narrow down your options.
Yeah.
Another thing too, I talked about using your TA and your GI Bill. But many military roles involve skills that are highly transferable to the tech industry. So highlight your experience in areas such as leadership, problem solving, teamwork, and discipline. These
Yeah.
qualities are very highly valuable
Like your
in
soft
tech
skills,
sector.
essentially. Yeah.
Exactly, because that's something that like I did have, I've already led a team basically before. And right now I'm always helping out my manager and I'm kind of like also dabbling into the managerial roles as well. But
TPM. Ugh.
I'm just saying,
I
expand
know,
your
I know. It's
stuff.
all good fun.
But yeah, and then, we talked about networking, but also attend tech conferences and meetups and online forums to build a network within the tech
True.
community are big things, right? And
That's what
networking
your
can
husband
provide.
does.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, Stephen went to a lot of like meetups
Yeah.
over when we lived in Seattle. And that
Hmm.
really helped too. So
I know
that's a big
programming,
thing.
cybersecurity, they have a
Yeah.
big community. They have a very involved community, I would say.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
roles like
It's
me, like
very,
IT networking background, like
yeah.
there's a community, but I noticed with cybersecurity, with hackers,
Hmm.
developers,
Hmm.
very
Yeah.
thriving community. And you probably felt that as well. One, living with your
Yeah.
husband and getting into
Yeah.
development roles, just being
Right. Right.
online, huge community
Yeah.
for programming.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, networking can provide valuable insights like job opportunities and mentorship too, which
Yeah.
is great because you never know who you're gonna meet that's gonna be, they might be somebody in the tech field. And like we talked about, platforms like LinkedIn can be particularly useful for connecting with professionals in your desired field. But yeah, I'm trying to think, like I think also just like we talked about, there's internships too. So
Hmm.
I would advise people to look into internships. They can be valuable ways to bridge the gap between military service and civilian tech
And
careers.
that's like
Uh,
on your way
yeah,
out, right?
right, right,
Yeah.
totally.
Hmm.
And I think I don't quote me if I'm, don't put me in
Yeah.
this, but I think when you get out of the like towards the end of your military experience, you can apply for internships. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've heard of
So
that before, so I think
yeah,
that's a thing.
the army has something called the CSP program, and that
Okay.
covers all these like hiring. This is the army, right? Because me and
Mhm.
you came from the army. I
Mhm.
can't speak for the
Yeah,
Navy, Air Force. But
right.
the army has a CSP program, career skills program. That's
Hmm.
the that's the guideline. That's everything for hiring for heroes. The skill bridge
Hmm.
program, onward to opportunity,
Hmm.
regular just CSP internship. You can go intern anywhere in the army, anywhere.
Right.
So, for example, Trepa Tech, we've had plenty of interns that have used the
Hmm.
CSP program. And that's like
Hmm.
4 months out. So yes,
Okay.
there's plenty.
Yeah, that's
Like
cool.
your apprenticeship, more than likely you could have done before you even got that DD 214. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? So,
Yeah, like based off of where they're at, sometimes maybe if
mm,
it's, your station near it type of thing. Yeah, because I
yeah,
was gonna say, even though I did look up before this, I looked to see if there are any apprenticeships. There are zero open right now just
yeah,
because of the hiring freeze.
it's okay.
But
It's 20,
I was gonna, well, I was
2024.
gonna,
It'll change.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'll change. It'll always change. But I was gonna say something to do too is to reach out to those military recruiters within Amazon now and start getting the conversation going because if you network with them and then they let you know when something has opened up for
Mm,
this opportunity is a good, that's something to do as well.
yeah.
But yeah, I think another thing too is just take advantage of those military transition programs, veteran support organizations, and resources offered by the government. These programs can provide great guidance and networking opportunities and job placement assistance, and stay updated in the tech industry because it's always evolving,
Yeah.
stay informed about the latest trends and tools and
Frameworks.
technologies in your,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Continuous learning is essential for
Hmm.
success in tech. So
So,
yeah.
yep, I got a question for you now. We can be a
Yeah.
little less serious. We can just riff with each other.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
if you had to choose, right, you can go back 4 years. I think you would still
Okay.
probably work at AWS, but would you have
Mhm.
just done the ADC role where you're kind of being more platform
Mm,
IT operation style versus dev?
it's so hard. It's hard because let me look at this. This is the way I look at it.
Hmm.
I would say that knowing the programming has really helped even with the ADC role because when I see a problem that's occurring in, let's say, the logs,
Hmm.
I know exactly how to go find that in the code, right?
Hmm.
And then I can help out the service team that I'm working with and say, hey, this is where I see the problem is occurring, and it's due to X, Y, and Z based off of what I'm seeing in the code, right? So
Hmm.
that has greatly helped me as an engineer. So it's been super beneficial. And honestly, there's a part of me that's like, I've pushed code at AWS. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
built stuff, like literally built features
That's
and
something you
things
could
that I've
always
used for
say.
internal tools. Right,
Hmm.
exactly. So that's pretty cool. But at the same time, gosh, that's a hard one because now I'm transitioning, right, to a
Yeah.
different role. And it's like if I was already there, I wouldn't have to do this role doc change and everything. So, I'm just saying. But it's been actually really cool to be able to I know how to code,
Yeah. Yeah.
and having the on-the-job training, I think is a big thing because I didn't know how to code really before. Yes, I took a couple of college courses, did a few projects on my own, right? But
But
at the
it's
same
nothing like
time,
the
like
enterprise. Like
it's
nothing like,
nothing like,
yeah.
yeah, nothing like on the job training, working with people that have been on these teams for 10 plus years, and they're giving me their, time and they're giving me their advice and they're giving me all these resources, right, to be
Hmm.
a better engineer. So that's such an invaluable thing,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I would start off as a sysdev and maybe just do the way I did where I'm transitioning, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, I've had enough
So,
of that.
yeah, working within
Yeah.
AWS, would you consider
Hmm.
yourself? I know it's because they have their own terms and for their roles,
Right.
just like every FANG
Right.
company does, right?
Right.
Would you consider yourself a cloud engineer in this new role? Is that
Mm-hmm.
kind of like if you had to put it on a resume
Hmm.
where the people
Yeah.
looking at your resume don't know AWS internal terms? Is
Right.
that what
Yeah.
you would be?
I would say that's probably the
Yeah.
base because it is literally a cloud engineer.
Service,
It's
right?
just it's just literally in the
Yeah.
the dedicated secured
Yeah.
regions, right? That's basically it's so ops heavy, type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think
Mhm.
sometimes these terms they just get so muddied. Like Google
They
loves
do.
saying they have SREs, they have site reliability engineers. You break
Right.
down their job roles, not one is the same, and they're all just
Mhm.
maintaining a platform, right?
That's yeah,
And
exactly.
then
Yeah.
there's platform engineers that
Yeah.
work in the cloud that
Mhm.
also do a little dev. So it gets so messy. That's like
It
DevOps.
does.
But
It
anyways,
does.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So okay guys, so that's gonna cover everything we want to go over in this episode. Stay tuned for our next episode where we're gonna have another successful veteran on the show. His role is cybersecurity. So Tara, thank you for coming and you have a good
Yeah.
night.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of
Thanks. You
course.
too. Bye.